Hi there, my name is Sydney Dukes, and I'm going to be talking about the process of fermentation today. So, microbial fermentation is the process that microbes use to break down organic molecules, including sugars, in the absence of oxygen. So, the microbes that are involved in the fermentation of vegetables are lactic acid bacteria. So, these bacteria break down sugar in order to produce lactic acid. So I went ahead and already made my fermentation product. So I went ahead and cut up some cucumbers, and I have some yellow onion in here as well as green bell pepper. So first off is I sliced the vegetables, and then I went ahead and actually covered them in a coarse salt, and mixed them up all together so that they were coated. I let them sit for about 1 hour. And while I was waiting, I went ahead and mixed a apple cider vinegar and sugar solution. So the recipe that I found called for 1 cup of vinegar and 2 cups of sugar, but I don't really like any sugar in my pickling solutions, so I did just a 1-to-1 solution. So I did 1 cup of vinegar and 1 cup of sugar instead of 2. So I went ahead and made sure that the sugar was all dissolved in that vinegar solution, and then I also added in some garlic, mustard powder, and dill just for my own taste preferences. And then once the vegetables were done sitting in the salt for an hour, I went ahead and rinsed them off, placed them in a jar, and then I went ahead and put that vinegar sugar solution into the jar. And I went ahead and put this in the fridge and let it sit for about 2 days to allow fermentation to occur. So, for the ingredients, so the pickles, bell peppers, and onions were the vegetables that were being used to ferment. And then in the process of coating the vegetables in salt, that was done because it kills any unwanted bacteria while also preserving the special lactic acid bacteria, because they're actually very, very tolerant to salt. So with the sugar solution, I added in sugar, which the lactic acid bacteria breaks down in order to create ATP, and then also the apple cider vinegar. That was also used as a preservative, and also kills off any possible contaminants that could possibly spoil the vegetables instead of fermenting them. So that would happen if there was oxygen or unwanted bacteria that went ahead and grew in my fermentation jar. Next up is question 3. So the microbes involved in fermentation are basically going through cellular respiration with a few altered steps. The biggest cause in the difference of the metabolic processes comes from the absence of oxygen. In the final step of cellular respiration, oxygen acts as a receptor and picks up electrons from the electron transport chain. However, in the fermentation I conducted to create these pickled vegetables, cells actually undergo lactic acid fermentation instead due to the absence of oxygen. So in this process, the cells or the bacteria undergo glycolysis but do not go through oxidation or the Krebs cycle. In lactic acid fermentation, the cells instead go into an NAD regeneration where the NADH molecule transfers its electron directly to the pyruvate molecule. The NADH molecule then becomes an NAD again, which allows the process of glycolysis to continue. And then after pyruvate picks up the electron from NADH, it creates lactate, which is the byproduct of the lactic acid fermentation. The metabolic breakdown of sugars in this process decreases the sweetness of the solution and increases the sourness, which is what gives the fermented vegetables their classic sour taste. So next up, the changes that occur in food during fermentation. So the amount of oxygen in the container should stay the same because fermentation does not utilize oxygen molecules, or at least rather lactic acid. Fermentation does not use oxygen. I'm also gonna pretend that this is a completely air sealed tight, there was no oxygen in here to begin with, because I'm not gonna think about possibly having mold in there. So I'm not gonna think about that. And so next up is the pH. So the pH decreases and it actually becomes a more acidic solution due to the production of lactic acid, and also the vinegar makes it a pretty acidic solution as well. And then the alcohol and carbon dioxide content stay the same because yeast is not involved in this fermentation process, and therefore ethanol fermentation is not occurring. The temperature decreased because I did actually throw this jar in the refrigerator immediately, so it was in a little bit more of a controlled condition. And then also, that's what I have. So, I'm gonna try my food. I have not tried my fermentation yet, and I did seal this pretty well, so we'll kind of see how it goes. And I really hope it worked because I don't like sweet and salty, and so if this is at all sweet, I'm not gonna love it. So that'll be okay, but I'm a little bit excited and a little bit scared. I did throw a lot of dill in here, so I'm hoping that kind of helps flavor this a little bit better. So I have a little cucumber here, and I'll go ahead and try it. Okay, it's really sweet. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That tastes like sugar. Yeah, so, changes that I would make. I think I would probably find a different recipe that uses less sugar, or maybe water instead of vinegar, and that way I could let it ferment a little bit longer, and hopefully the molecules, or the cells rather, will break down the sugar in fermentation like they're supposed to. So that would be my recommendation. This is my first experience fermenting anything. I am actually a pretty good cook overall, but I think I still need to nail down my fermentation process. So that was my video. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope that you enjoyed.